Just had to fill out the application. It asked if I wanted to register to vote or if I didn't want to register to vote, and I said, why not?
Raymond has lived in San Diego for 2.5 years now. He went to the Hillcrest DMV office in late February for reasons not related to voting, but left as a registered voter in California, thanks to state and federal motor voter laws.
If it skips a step for the average person that may not, that wouldn't normally sign themselves up to vote, then I think it's a good thing.
These laws have been on the books for a generation. The idea is to make registration more accessible, with the hope that people would then actually go out and vote. Thad Kauser is a professor of political science at UC San Diego.
The big picture here is that one of the reasons why the United States lags behind other nations typically in voter turnout is that we have this extra step of voter registration.
3 decades after the first Motor Voter Act, Get Out the Vote advocates are grateful for the law and others that have made registering to vote easier. But the hoped-for impact on voter turnout hasn't always materialized.
Speak your mind and change will follow.
The efforts in the 1990s went beyond the DMV and included the MTV generation. In 1992, Joel Shulkin was a sophomore at the University of New Hampshire. He was running a new voter registration program.
Part of it was, and traditionally, students up to that point, really, and young people in general, the under 24 population really didn't turn out to vote. And yet, so many legislative decisions are made every day that affect that population.
Shulkin was also an REM fan. On the back of the band's Out of Time album was a petition for the Motor Voter Bill and a program called Rock the Vote. The idea behind Rock the Vote was for celebrity volunteers to inspire young people. Shulkin wrote a letter to Rock the Vote. After they responded, everything changed.
I actually remember going door to door with Sarah Jessica Parker, and she was so nice. Like she said, "Oh my gosh, you're the one who wrote the letter," and was so excited. And she would stop and just talk to students and insist on talking to them for like 10-15 minutes until they finally agreed to go ahead and sign up to vote.
Shulkin says they were able to register 10,000 new voters at the University of New Hampshire alone. He says young voters were mobilized to turn out for the election, too.
While many people charge that the large number of unregistered students was due to apathy, my experience tells me something very different. Much of the problem is due to needless obstacles to registration.
Even with efforts like Rock the Vote, voter registration and turnout continued to have peaks and valleys. Registration obstacles and dismal turnout persisted, especially in California. A low point came in 2014. Mindy Romero is with the Center for Inclusive Democracy, which studies the impacts of motor voter laws.
Back in 2014, we saw a record low turnout, period, in California. The primaries, the general election was the lowest general election turnout that we've ever seen.
Voting rights advocates sued the California DMV. The suit prompted the state legislature to pass the new Motor Voter Act in 2015. This further streamlined the registration process at DMVs. Then, in 2021, a task force was established to ensure DMV offices were complying with the law. Registration is again on the rise in the wake of the updated laws, but it's still not translating into higher turnout across the board. Dora Rose is the deputy director of the California League of Women Voters. She says automatic voter registration, or AVR, needs to be backed up by additional measures.
I guess I would say that it's really important to note that AVR doesn't immediately translate into high turnout, right? For example, people who register through California's online system, where they have to actually proactively seek out registration, they turn out at much higher rates than the folks who are registering at the DMV. And that means that it's very important to take the next step, which is to do the education and outreach work that's necessary to translate new registrations into actual votes.
For Raymond at the Hillcrest DMV, participating in the upcoming local election isn't a high priority. But, he says, at least he has the option for the November presidential election.
It's kind of 50-50. I'm not really participating in anything local because I'm not up to date. But as far as presidential, I'd probably vote on that. Times are crazy, so I want to make sure the right person wins.
Elain, Alfaro, KPBS News.